Welcome, everyone, with Greg Roth and the Ambassador David Eby. This is yours truly, Eric Glazer, and this is Super Bowl 59's version of the Sharp Squares podcast. Here we go. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, I beg your pardon, we did go 2-0. Greg and I in our pool are 6-3-1 for the playoffs, rebounding after the regular season. We have a great show planned for you today. I'm wearing the Sharp Squares t-shirt. Roth is wearing the Sharp Squares hat, and Eby is wearing the Sharp Squares t-shirt, pullover, t-shirt, and hat, like trifecta. Lots of swag going on in his office.
Some new swag is on the way as well.
New swag's on the way.
Keep on the outlook for that. It might take a couple weeks. Don't text or call up for updates. You'll see it eventually.
How will I sleep for the next quarter?
Just in time for the spring season. That'll be your mystery.
That's what people want to hear right now. Here's what we're going to do for everyone. We've got some handicapping highlights and some picks for the sides. So segment 1 is going to be about the sides, what you're used to hearing. Spoiler alert, there aren't any medal games, but you're going to get some info for those that took games this week. Then we're going to get into the juice of what this week is, and we've collected for you some of the best trends from our shows that we really liked and some of the best props. Thanks to our entire production team for doing a lot of that for us. So you will get all of that. Should be a great show with a lot of good content. Hopefully you could convert it into some wins. So to start us off, in a segment we called Gold, Silver, Bronze, even though there isn't any Gold, Silver, Bronze, but it is still Gold, Silver, Bronze. For one last time this season, everyone's favorite fellow degenerate, the Greg Roth.
Eric, thank you so much. Hello to you, Ambassador. As Eric mentioned, there's no medal games. Super Bowl 59. I don't think we've had a medal game in the Super Bowl since we've been doing this show any years. So no surprise there. But we do have a big game. Of course, the Chiefs are playing the Eagles. The Chiefs are currently favored -1.5. That line hasn't moved. Game is in New Orleans. We did have some picks, though. Some side picks, some rare side picks from our Sharps. Chris Raybon from the Action Network, he picked the Chiefs on the money line. And Gil Alexander, David Bierman, Todd Wishnow, and the Favorites podcast all picked the Chiefs at -1.5. There were a few Sharps on the Eagles. Marco D'Angelo and Kelly Stewart from the Bet On It podcast, like Philly at +1.5. And the Whale Capper picked the Eagles on the money line.
Greg, because I was such a diligent producer this week, I did notice something here. This is not your fault, but just to be transparent, on the Chiefs, on the Favorites pod, I believe their official pick was -1, but then Chad made an executive decision and said, we're actually going to take the Chiefs on the money line. So I don't know why it's -1.5 there. Doesn't really make too much of a difference, but I want to be clear on the data.
Well, you're going to hear in the trends as well that actually the line very often doesn't matter in this game.
There you go. All right, let's get into some of the handicapping highlights so you guys can make your own decision on which side you're going to play if you're going to go in that direction. So to start us off with why you should take Kansas City, the Ambassador. Take it away.
All right. Well, first, let's hear from Gil Alexander from Beating the Book. He points out that Kansas City has won 17 consecutive one-score games, 12 this year. He says Kansas City can game plan for a running back like Barkley a lot easier than Philadelphia can game plan for a quarterback like Mahomes. Also, everyone seems to be predicting a close game. If Philadelphia wins, they would do so in blowout fashion. KC is more reliable in a close game scenario than Philadelphia. I mean, come on. Who do you trust more, Andy Reid or Nick Sirianni? Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts? To ask the question is to answer it. Chris Raybon from the Action Network. Mahomes is 28-9-1 ATS as a favorite of less than 3 or as an underdog. The game script may not favor Philadelphia if they fall behind. They may have to throw the ball and cannot feed Barkley, so that's not good. Marco D'Angelo from Bet On It says that teams that score 40-plus points in conference championships are only 3-7 straight up in the Super Bowl.
All right. For the Eagles, Steve Fezzik from the Dream Preview, he thinks the line is odd. Philadelphia was a 2-point favorite in this game 2 years ago. It's widely accepted that Philadelphia is much better this year with Barkley, and Kansas City is not as good. And now the line is flipped to Kansas City -1.5. That seems strange. Philadelphia is plus 0.8 in yards per play differential on the season. Kansas City is actually in the negative, and Philadelphia is going to go on fourth down a lot during this game, and that could lead them to push for more short yardage situations in third and mid to third and long to give themselves a chance to go for it on fourth with the tush push. Scott Seidenberg from the Dream Preview, teams that play in the wild card week versus teams that had a bye are 13-3 ATS in the wild card era of the Super Bowl. Marco D'Angelo from Bet On It, Philly has held the last 15 of 16 opponents to 23 points or less. They have rushed for 683 yards in the last 3 playoff games at 6.5 yards a carry. Philly in the last 6 games has a 20-2 turnover margin. VSiN's Steve, help me out here, Greg. Makinen.
I'm not sure. Both sound great. Steve, we apologize if we got it wrong.
All right, this is one of my favorite stats. You're going to hear it again in the trends. I kept it in the show twice because I think it's one of the most powerful findings. Regarding in-game statistics, teams with an edge in at least 3 of 4 key team statistic categories are 40-6 straight up and 36-9-1 ATS. That's 80% if you don't have a calculator on you. Here are those 4 key stats: rushing yards, passing yards per attempt, turnovers, and time of possession. Philadelphia was superior this season in all 4 categories, including time of possession, where it ranked number 1 in the NFL.
Wow.
Let's move on to trends. Take it away, Greg.
This trend from Steve Makinen from VSiN. The team with the better record going into the Super Bowl game is 30-20 straight up all time, but has lost 12 of the last 14 and is on a 1-16 against the spread skid since 2004. That's almost too insane to believe, guys, especially if you hearken back to the early 90s when the better team always won, seemingly by spectacular margins. The team that is the best playoff seed is also just 2-16 and 2 against the spread. That's 11.1% in the last 28 Super Bowl games with equal seeded matchups 8 times in that span. Wow. The outright winner is 48-7-3 against the spread, 87.3% in the previous 58 Super Bowls. So again, the line doesn't matter. You pick the winner. Also from VSiN, underdogs in the Super Bowl own a 17-6 against the spread edge. That's 73.9% over the last 23 years, including 13-4 against the spread in the last 17. KC has pulled off outright upsets in each of the last 2 Super Bowl games as exactly 1.5-point underdogs. For this season, early line action finds Kansas City as the favorite. Of course, those trends are very favorable to the Eagles. Wow.
Also from Steve Makinen at VSiN, teams that allowed fewer points per game during the regular season have gone 8-1 straight up and 7-2 against the number. So that's 77.8% in the last 9 Super Bowls. Philadelphia has allowed fewer points to Kansas City in the regular season at a 17.8 to 19.2 points per game difference. Teams that generated more yardage overall offensively in the regular season also own no edge when it comes to the Super Bowl, going 2-11 straight up and 1-12 ATS in the last 13 games. Defensive coordinators, guys, have 2 full weeks to get ready for these games and these offenses, as well as the talent to hold them down. Philadelphia holds the edge significantly this year with 367.2 yards per game versus Kansas City's 327.6. All right. And to repeat this for those watching on social media, this is one of our favorite trends and reasons to take the Eagles. Regarding in-game statistics derived, teams with an edge in at least 3 of 4 key statistical categories are 40-6 straight up, 36-9-1 ATS. That's 80%. The recipe for success in the Super Bowl stems from the 4 key categories: rushing yards, passing yards per attempt, turnovers, and time of possession. Philadelphia was superior in all 4 categories, including number 1 in the NFL in time of possession. Thank you, Steve Mackinnon from Visa.
Eagles are number 1 in time of possession in the NFL this year.
That is true.
So,
All right.
That's helpful predictor.
Let's leave it at that.
These trends from the Action Network. Andy Reid versus Nick Sirianni will be the 5th head coach rematch in the Super Bowl all time. The head coach who won the first meeting straight up also won the second meeting in all 4 prior instances. That includes Reid versus Kyle Shanahan last year in Super Bowl Livy. That would be 48, LVIII. Head coaches to meet in 2 Super Bowls. Andy Reid over Kyle Shanahan, Tom Coughlin over Bill Belichick, Jimmy Johnson over Marv Levy, and of course, who could forget Chuck Noll over Tom Landry.
Super Bowl 58.
Yes. What did I say? Oh, I said 48?
You did.
Oh,
I still love you.
I've got to brush up on my Roman numerals. I tell you, they're coming back. They're coming back. Patrick Mahomes. In January and February, Mahomes is 16-2 straight up in home or neutral site games, which this is, of course, with his losses coming against Joe Burrow and Tom Brady. He's 44-6 straight up in that spot, home or neutral site games, in November or later. On the road or neutral site, Mahomes has started 26 games, either as an underdog or a favorite of 3 points or less, and he's 21-4-1 against the spread. That's 84%. In the playoffs, Mahomes is 8-0 straight up and ATS when either listed as an underdog or a favorite of less than a field goal. 8-0. On extended rest, which means 8 or more days of rest during the season, Mahomes is 30-4 straight up since 2019. In his playoff career, Mahomes is 17-3 straight up. That's 85%.
These trends are also from the Action Network. Vic Fangio coach defenses have faced Patrick Mahomes 8 times, 6 with the Broncos and twice with the Dolphins. In those games, these trends also from the Action Network. Vic Fangio coach defenses have faced Patrick Mahomes 8 times, 6 with the Broncos and twice with the Dolphins. They are 0-8, Fangio that is, straight up, and 2-6 against the spread. Mahomes in those games, 10 TDs, 2 interceptions, 64% completion percentage. That sounds good for the Chiefs. However, 2 of his lowest 10 passing yard games in the regular season are against Fangio. Granted, the Broncos offense only scored 15 points in those 2 games combined. That's why Fangio didn't cover. Pass yards after the catch, 1st and 4th lowest career in regular season starts for Mahomes. Bad throw percentage, that is percentage of off-target throws versus pass attempts, equals 23% or higher. 21 games total. Mahomes has tallied that number. 3 were versus Fangio. Of 20 negative EPA games in Mahomes' career, 2 have come against Fangio's defenses, as well as 2 of the top 10 worst EPA games in Mahomes' career. So,
hey, Greg, you did a great. That was some tough note reading there.
Thank you. The Eagles are the 11th team to enter a Super Bowl with a 1,500-yard regular season rusher, and the first since Sean Alexander in 2005 and Corey Dillon in 2004. Those teams with 1,500-yard rushers are 8-2 straight up in the Super Bowl. The 2 losses were from Alexander in 2005 and Jamal Anderson in 1998. That bodes well, of course, for Saquon Barkley. The Chiefs were favored by an average of 4.3 points per game this season, which barely edged the Eagles, who were favored by, on average, 4 points per game this season. Over the last 21 years, the team that was the biggest favorite on average over the course of the season is 7-14 straight up and 3-18 in the Super Bowl, including 7-16 straight up and 3-20 ATS over the last 23 years since 2001.
All right, we're going to hit you up with some of our favorite props, sponsored by the Professor. He doesn't pay us much, but he did want to get his run. Here we go. From the Dream Preview, Steve Fezzik likes Kansas City's team total of over 24.5. He also likes A.J. Brown's over 71.5. Incidentally, I heard some of his rationale on this. If you believe that Philadelphia is going to generate some offense in this game and control the ball more, you want to pound their key receivers on the prop bets. He also said second half to outscore the first half. That's for both teams combined. And that will be, he's taking it at minus 130. I don't know what you guys could get out there right now. Second half to outscore the first half. Also, Steve Fezzik, with this time from Even Money, he likes the second half over of 24.5, which of course correlates with that last prop. From Scott Seidenberg from the Dream Preview, he likes Goddard over 4.5 receptions. And he also likes the shortest TD to be under 1.5 yards. There's been a 1-yard TD in 4 of the past 5 Super Bowls and 7 of the past 9.
From Stuckey at the Action Network, here's another Dallas Goddard prop. Goddard over 50, I should say more than 50 yards. I guess that would be the same as over 50 yards. Receiving yards. The rationale, KC will play man at a high rate. Goddard leads all tight ends in yards per route run, nearly 4 yards per route run against man-to-man defense. The game script may force Hurts to throw more. In his 8 career playoff games, Goddard averages 6 catches on 7.8 targets for about 60 yards. And KC allows 6 receptions to tight ends per game. Next prop, Chiefs team total under 115.5 rushing yards. That's from Ray Bond at the Action Network. From the favorites, Saquon under 112 rushing yards. Also, both teams to have a successful 4th down conversion. I like that one. Yes, for a successful 2-point conversion. Remember back in the good old days, nobody ever made 2-point conversions. Now it's all the time. And finally, Mahomes, under 35.5 passing attempts. That also from the favorites.
Both of these trends are from Mike Somich from VSiN, and he gives you a handicap for both of them as well. First one, Jalen Hurts, 2+ touchdowns at plus 500. So much is rationale. Everyone is betting on Saquon Barkley to score touchdowns, but it's Hurts who has the value in the game. We all know about the brotherly shove, and no one has been able to stop it. He doesn't expect, so much that is, that the Chiefs will have an answer. Hurts also gets design runs in the red zone, which adds to his TD equity. Second trend there, Noah Gray, over 11.5 receiving yards. Rationale from Somich. Every week, Kansas City designs their offense to attack the opposing defense's weaknesses. And if that is the case, then expect the Chiefs to run 2 tight end sets and attack the middle of the field. That has been a lone weakness all season for the Eagles D. That plays into Noah Gray being on the field and running more routes against a similar defense in the divisional round. Gray caught 3 passes for 13 yards.
All right, we threw a lot of information at you. Incidentally, Greg and I are probably in our pool going to lay the 1.5 points and take Kansas City, but we may change our minds and we'll post it on Twitter. What a great job by the team this season. I just want to throw some props out to the entire team. This show takes so many people to make it work and get it all together each and every week. We aggregate so much information from all different sources. Even with all the AI tools, you still have to do a lot of manual work. And I want to give a shout out to the entire team: Alex Hermy, Anthony Tenney, Chris Deester, Corey Como, Edwin Ortiz, Eric Schultz, Elon, don't call me Elon Weismark, Jared Long, the dealer Jerry Westlow, John Koof, Pete Shire, Sam Gerber, Sam White, Sam Haldeman. We're loaded with Sam's, very strong there, a lot of depth. Scott Vick, Toby Baldwin, Tony Sperano. A special shout out to P Money, Patrick McQuillan, who's done so much work sort of as our captain this year. EB, David EB, the ambassador, who gets on early, produces a lot of the show at the last minute, besides co-hosting this year. Roth, who blows off his entire family on Friday nights to do final production. Thank you both for all your hard work. Everyone on the show, appreciate it all. Keeping it going. And a reminder, as great as all those guys are, none of them are truly sharp. But this is your Sharp Squares podcast.
Good luck out there.